Welcome to the 1334 podcast. Today I'm joined by Enoch Kinway from Kinway's Mission in Southeast Asia. So we just want to go over a little bit of an update of what has happened over the last year since we were there and created the Thailand documentary, and then go into their current and new partnership that they've got going on. How's it going?
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me, Blake. So good to catch up and really align with vision, and love what you're doing. And it's been incredible year, and it's amazing. See on social media when memories come up of different photos, and I feel like we really connected, it's why we're here today. Get to share what God's doing through our lives, but also throughout Southeast Asia. So. Yeah, it's been a great year.
That's awesome. I know you mentioned one of the videos I edited while on site there in Thailand that you were able to use for a conference. Could you kind of go into detail about just that one video and how that's helped you guys?
Yeah, not many people know, but I've reached out to Blake and 1334 Media a few times to help with some editing and things, but that one video that you edited and produced there in Thailand, I guess we're on a row, we're in the middle of shooting the documentary, and there was so many hours of B-roll that was coming through and interviews. You started to get a heart for what we're doing, and just knowing more about us. But we did have a significant missions conference. I think it was about 2 months after you left. I think you guys arrived in June, July, and that was in August. And that one video, it was 3.5 minutes. We had the most amazing feedback from pastors and leaders, just going how can we be involved? Just loved how it encapsulated our hearts, our passion. And so, it was an incredible blessing because, we had a lot of connections from that. And as much as there were a few financial partners that joined in or did some once-offs, I think it just brought great awareness to our friends.
Yeah.
And so there was just a higher engagement. Even leaders now are still engaged with us, and we're praying that as needs come up, they will get a real heart for it too. So I think even the documentary itself, a year on from I guess it's not quite a year since it's fully been released, but it's just probably hasn't necessarily brought finance to partnering, but I think it has brought a great awareness to the need for church planting, the need for reaching the unreached. And I think the need for that is just so great here in Southeast Asia, but also in this 1040 window, which we're part of, reaching the unreached. And so we're excited. I think media is here to stay. It's only developing. I can only imagine what 10 years from now looks like, with virtual aspects of, people being able to see 3D, walkthroughs of villages, with all the LiDAR things that are going on. And, it's pretty amazing to, I guess, take people on the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's cool because a lot of people know that they should be making content. They should be making things for their mission or their organization, and they just, I guess, they don't see just how beneficial it could be until you have something made and you go and sit down with a bunch of people and watch it at a conference like that. That's an entirely different experience. I've had the pleasure of making videos that hundreds of people have seen at one time, and when you sit down in that room and watch everybody's reaction, everyone laughs at the same time or cries at the same time or whatever it is, it's a much different experience than seeing 20 views on a Facebook video. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's when someone can encapsulate the heart and bring it to the screen, it's not just information, but it's you're taking people somewhere. And I think that's particularly with that video for a conference. It was short, snappy, had to get across the point, but at the same time wasn't scripted. I didn't have a script. It was just, I think you were even interviewing me for that, and you like just share your heart in 3.5 minutes, like why people, what you do, why people should be involved, and what's the need, and then
Mm,
it just sort of flowed from there. And so, yeah, I think it's so good, and it's amazing as well because like one piece of media can be used at a conference, as long as it's fairly generic, but at the same time it can be. I used it in like personal messages through social
mm,
media. I used it as email attachments. Churches used it. So yes, there might have been 400 people live seeing it, but I think like thousands of people have seen that video.
yeah,
And so yeah, it's been an incredible blessing. Yeah, not just a documentary, but even like those short videos like that have been incredible.
yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, so I've kind of developed this like content pyramid where the bottom is your really long form stuff. That's the documentary, and that takes the most work to make. It's the hardest thing to make, but from there you can get hundreds and hundreds of short videos from it. Like we've got the 3.5 minute video. There's multiple 3, 4, 5 minute videos that we've
Right,
done, and then there's also a ton of vertical 10-second videos from it. That's just like the walking street or
right,
food or you and Pon at that new church plant. It's
right.
like even just really small stuff like that is still extra content that if somebody sees it that doesn't know who you are, they might become interested just to look and see and like,
Yeah,
okay, well, what's going on here? You know what I mean? It's all of the little pieces that come from the really big, like even a podcast is a long form content. Like from
right.
this, we'll get clips from it. You know what I mean? Like there's always smaller stuff you can take to continue to reach people from the small time invested in a longer form content. So I think
Yeah,
I think I think what you're saying is a really cool personal experience of that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think also like organizations like yourselves, 1334 Media, it's you guys having the expertise in the heart to actually encapsulate the story in the heart. And so we might have a desire to do something, but might not even just don't know where to start, don't know how to, don't know. And so, it's been so good having someone like yourself that just truly passionate about it and just like, yeah, I can do that. Let's do it. Like,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, even recently, we've got a whole bunch of app updates and announcements with GF and different things. And you're like, hey, like, just give me some time, let's do it. And the ability to even like, we're literally 12 hours time zone behind each other or in front of each other, and we can still be a blessing, still be connected, still supporting
Yeah.
what each other are doing. And so I just love how God brings people together.
At 1334 Media, we believe your generosity doesn't have to be complicated. From planting churches in Thailand, helping orphanages in India, and even serving alongside our partners locally in South Georgia, every dollar you give helps another nonprofit tell their story, connect with supporters, and make a real impact. Your support fuels life-changing media and training that brings hope, awareness, and resources to causes that matter. These stories can't make a difference if they aren't heard. Join us today because doing more doesn't have to mean doing it alone.
It's
Yeah,
um, it's so
it's
good.
cool. It's powerful. So let's go into some of the updates and the details of what all has changed in the last year. I really want to know more about this global fellowship partnership.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, obviously when you guys arrived, we only were back in Thailand for a few months, I think, like three or 4 months, and so we are probably still in that settling stage into Chiang Mai, really involved with Victory Church, and we're still involved at a high level in Victory Church with Pastor Sean and Lindsay and the team. But yeah, during I guess post the documentary, we were really having this desire of like, okay, how do we start these church planting trainings? How do we get alongside these local leaders that are going to plant churches? Um, and so, to be honest, we were so busy with local church uh, development because the church was growing at a high rate. 2024 was like our church grew by 200 people, which is
Wow.
incredible. And so we also feel like God brought our family at the perfect time to help stabilize, help just build into systems within the church. But deep down, Pastor Sean and I were talking about, hey, like, what's next? How are we going to? I guess when I say we, he was challenging me. How are you going to outwork the vision that's on your heart? And I said, yeah. I was like, it's one thing to have a vision. It's another thing to like how to outwork that. Because
Yeah.
I think sometimes God gives us dreams, or even in business, we have a vision for something, but we also have to take a few steps back of like, how do we outwork this? How do we start it? And yeah, we're just busy at church, and um, I was just, I guess, being a pastor at the end of the service, and I was talking to a new family, and they were kind of heading out down the elevator to head home, and we just, I think that talking to their kids, and I was like, hey, like, yeah, we should catch up. And then they said, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we're involved in church planning. I was like, oh man, that's amazing. Like, I love that. Like, that's really like on my heart. And I said, well, yeah, I've planted a church here in Thailand now. Whoa. And so it was like 2 weeks later, we got connected again at church, and it was very organic. It wasn't like intentional. And then finally we're like, hey, we need to sit down, have lunch. And that first lunch together was just like, I felt like they were reading my playbook. Like, their vision was my vision, their mission was my mission, the cultural values. And like, we didn't show too much excitement, but once Summer and I like jumped in the car, we went home. We're like, who are these guys? Like, I feel like they're us, and then we didn't know, but Kristen and Conrad, because Conrad's the co-executive director, that just moved
Okay.
from America to Chiang Mai to sort of have a start up an office within Chiang Mai and Central Asia, and they had the same conversations. So they're like, Enoch and Summer are like, who are these guys? Like, we feel like they have been with us for a long time, and so over the next few months, we just naturally like hanged out and caught vision, and just did life, and we never really even started with like, oh, we should join together, or because by this stage we're just like, we're going to support one another no matter what. It's not, we don't need to sign a paperwork. It's not an MOU. It's
Yeah.
just like, you guys are passionate about reaching lost people in unreached areas, and truly want to support local leaders through church planning. And we're like, that was our vision. So we're like, let's just do it. Let's. And then I didn't know, but Global Fellowship have been really praying for a director for Southeast Asia. Um, and so to start, because Global Fellowship history, they've been around about 35 years, primarily in Central Asia and the Middle East, and also North Africa. And so these are very focused on like Muslim areas, unreached areas of the world, with people with, regions with less than 1%. And so, yeah, but they hadn't reached out into Southeast Asia. And so they were praying for someone. And I'm kind of the odd one, because we really truly believe in local leadership at GF or Global Fellowship. And I'm, I guess, not a local leader to Southeast Asia. I'm a leader in Southeast Asia, but I wasn't born here. I don't have ethnic background here. And so, really my role over the next 10, 15 years is to find my replacement. I need
Yeah.
to find, like, I don't want to be the guy that's holding on to something, but I need to start something, develop the network of our church planners. But at the same time, deep down is like, I need to find someone that would, really take on this role, take on the region, and then I can move on to something else. So, yeah, God really put on our hearts when we're moving back to Thailand, um, that it was like a prophetic statement of also Southeast Asia. And I was really cautious of using that, because I didn't want to be that guy that, I don't know, he's just full of vision, but how to outwork that. And
Mm.
someone said to me just as we were leaving Australia, returning back to Thailand, and said, hey, Enoch, just want to let you know, I really felt like God speak to me that, yes, you're moving back to Thailand, but I really feel like God's going to put something in your heart for the surrounding nations. And they didn't know at the time, that was already in my heart. And so when we even created our website, um, we actually put Thailand and Southeast Asia, and it was like kind of a faith statement.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's kind of really how we first connected. Was very organic, they just happened to be in our church.
That's
And
crazy.
then, yeah, we just truly aligned. And it feels like we've known each other for years. Like, it honestly, their whole team, the culture that they got going on, very relational. Um, and yeah, we just feel so privileged to be part of it, to be honest. Yeah, to be invited to be part of it, but now to actually be part of the team and
Yeah,
helping being a leader in that space is a
that's
real
cool.
joy.
Has your day to day changed any? I know you were doing
Yeah,
a whole lot
yeah,
of
I think
meetings and church meetings and stuff.
yeah. So um, the great thing is, like, my role now with GF and what I have been doing, particularly with our church planning training, leadership development of emerging leaders. I was already kind of doing that, and so that's really, I guess, doing that now with Global Fellowship. So really, the support, the love, the encouragement, that's yeah, that stayed the same. I think what probably has changed is we have a lot of like management meetings about how we can execute our vision as
Mm-hmm.
GF. So it's actually brought a lot of clarity to me rather than me just as a facilitator or a teacher or a trainer. Um, but we're thinking beyond that. How do we engage these missionaries? How do I bring Global Fellowship around to support these guys? How do we share their stories better?
Yeah,
And so it feels like it's not just Summer and I with vision. It feels like
yeah,
actually they're empowering our vision.
that's cool.
And that's, yeah. And I'm still involved at a high level as well with Victory Church. So, like local church stuff as well is ebbs and flows. But yeah, really getting out there. So I have done a little bit of travel within Southeast Asia, but I've still been very focused on Thailand. So I was in Bangladesh recently, yeah, and doing some training for emerging leaders, and that place is so unreached. It's like I think it's 0.001% Christian. Um, it's like 99% Muslim state.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, we some of the things I guess around social media and even media, like I can't take videos or photos, and so trying to share stories creatively is our best way moving forward because we don't want to jeopardize our local leaders where we've
yeah,
been or that sort of thing. So yeah, so I think newsletters and just things that yeah, we just used other ways of sharing stories, or sometimes don't mention the name, but would just be more generic.
yeah,
Central Asia, Southeast Asia,
yeah.
but we don't mention towns or people names and that sort of thing. So
I know you ended up. Um, there was another conference you went to, right? Pretty
yeah,
recently. Could you
yes,
talk about that a little bit?
yeah. So we were in a conference. Is it the one in Chiang Rai that I did with the LAHU people?
Yeah.
Or yeah, so yeah, it was a great friend. Actually, it kind of felt like a full circle moment. It was like a little bit emotional because the leader of this conference was one of our very first Thai families that joined with our church plan, and he was my translator, one of my first worship leaders. Their kids were involved, and now to see them all grown up and leading is so amazing. And also, they've planted their own church since then. And
Wow.
so, for them to invite me to be a speaker at their conference for the Lahu people um, was like, yeah, it just felt like the band was back together. And actually, there was never a separation. It was just, everyone went, it was just expanding ministry. There was
Yeah.
never a problem that we've had. But it just felt so special to serve one another now, even at a larger capacity beyond our local congregations, but to a whole people group. And so the conference was really designed around empowerment of people with skills. So it was such an interesting conference because in the morning there were devotions and there was like, I guess, more of a Christian sort of impartation. But then throughout the day there was sports, there was English club areas, there was an area where people were welding. And so there was like guys that
Really?
were learning like basic welding skills. Um, there was kind of like a trauma care type of thing, like people that have gone through things. There was like professional counselors that were helping them with some
Really?
life skills. Um, there was like they call it what's it is not stronger men. I forget the title, but it was like how to be men in our societies. Um,
Yeah.
and so it was just really cool to sort of see like this whole holistic approach to ministry. Yes, there's the empowerment of God and the gospel, which is really important, but at the same time, we want to build people up, and we were focusing on the LAHU people, which are often seen as a lower class. It might not be
Mm.
talked about that, but they're from the tribes, they're from the mountains, and so when they come into the cities, they often feel inferior or not as educated or whatever it might be. And so we were trying to build them up as people in God, but also let them know there is a future, there is a hope, there is skills, they are talented, they are gifted. And so that was really the theme throughout the conference.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, so we did that for Friday, actually Saturday, Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I went back to Chiang Mai, and then we went to a different area and took a bunch of the leaders and pastors and did more of a pastors training. You know, how to lead healthily, how to keep yourself close with God, and how to bring vision to your village. And so we're really
Yeah.
focusing on the leaders. And so yeah, we were pretty tired after that 5 days. It was sort of like back to back, just but it was such a blessed time to be part of it all, and be with supporting local leaders, and that's our heart here in Southeast Asia, is not to be the leader ourselves, but actually empower the leaders that are
Yeah.
local to those countries, regions, and tribes. So yeah, it's really
You can
special.
only be at one place at one time.
Yeah, and I think if we think 50 years from now, 20 years from now, like I'm thankful for missionaries, and we need to continue to, they bring something to different areas. But
Hmm.
if it doesn't remain when we're gone, we haven't done our job. And
Yeah.
and so I foresee the future is like if we can train up local leaders to lead their congregations and to empower, 10, 15 years, if we're not involved in any way, I truly believe that people have been strengthened, the gospel has gone forward, people
Yeah.
are being reached and going to be continue to be reached because there's local people with the heart of God and with vision and mission. And so that's our mission. And right now is like supporting the local leader, empowering them, training them. And so we just want to get out of the way. Like we'll mentor, we'll love you guys, but they're the people that can speak the language, know the
Hmm.
culture, know the people better than we do, and so we're still learning. We're still learning from them and asking them questions. How can we serve them better?
What does a pastor training look like? I know you've held quite a few of them now.
Yeah, different regions have looked differently, and depending on what's been done before, and so often we're coming into some of these environments where it's been organized, and we're speaking, we're bringing content or bringing things.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah, but in the future, we're wanting to maybe organize more directly what we do.
Hmm.
But often, I just come in the heart is like, how can my 1.5, 2 days, how can I truly empower the pastor? And so the first session I often do is lay it out. Is like I'm talking to you as a pastor, you as a leader, you as a shepherd for your city, your country, your town, your village.
Hmm.
I'm speaking into your heart, and so I don't want to go in like with a Sunday sermon type of vibe. They're leaders. I don't need to preach to them, but it's more like how can we empower them? How can we lift them up? How can we build them? It says that in Ephesians, in Ephesians 4, it's like building up the saints for the
Hmm.
work of ministry. And so often the theme this year has been that is really challenging pastors to look beyond the gifts that they have personally, but look at the gifts that God has given them through the people that God has sent. And so,
Yeah, that's good.
that's really been the heart of our pastors training is challenging them to use their people, to train their people, because I really believe that the mandate that God has given us, and Paul wrote in Ephesians 4, he laid out all the fivefold ministry, the prophets, the teachers, the evangelists, and these pastors to come in. That was God sent them. They were spiritual gifts that God gave to the church. But the next verse says to equip, these were given to the church to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. And so it's a real shift if you've really truly embodied that. It means that us as a leader, so I normally share about this in the first session, us as a leader or a pastor or a shepherd that God has sent to us, we are here as a gift from God to do this thing which God has asked us to do, is to equip the saints for the work of ministry. So the ministry that happens through the community has to happen through the church, not through the pastor. Now, the pastor has a role, he is a leader, he's a shepherd, but he's really the leader of the leaders. He's shepherding, he's growing the people, but the people are the one that are doing the work of the ministry. And so I think for us, that's been our mindset when we come into these places. Like, how can we serve these leaders, but also leave something that they can apply back into their church and challenge them, to lead well. And then often towards the end of a pastor's thing is really about impartation into them. So just like refreshment, great worship, praying, building them up, time if people want to prophesy over each other, words of encouragement. We want them to leave bigger and better and stronger by being
Yeah.
part of this. And we're not here to waste their time. We're not here because we have nothing to do. We really want to just pour into these guys, and so and women, into to what they're doing, and so
Yeah.
yeah, and then we get to do follow up. So we often say, like, we'd love to stay connected, and then we often get invited back, sometimes in smaller groups or to a church. Hey, could you teach this in our church? And so it kind of has these flow-on effects.
That's cool. When you're thinking about raising pastors and speaking to pastors, is there any passage or book of the Bible that you really pull on? Because I know Titus is really big on, like, step by step how to find the right pastors, how to find the right leaders. Is that something that you really pull
Yeah,
on to?
yeah. I think Titus, I think First and Second Peter, have
Oh, those are so
brought,
good.
yeah. But I also feel um, like really Ephesians has really it speaks to the pastor a lot. So I use Ephesians a lot because it speaks to the renewing of you. Like Paul's bringing a lot of correction to the church in Ephesus through Ephesians, and it's speaking to you as a leader. But then he does bring a lot of instruction to the church, and so I think all a lot of those New Testaments, but I think depending on like what angle I'm going, if it's a bit more practical, or if
Yeah.
it's spiritual, but yeah, often Ephesians, Titus, First and Second Peter, are really like quite fundamental to what we're doing, because there's an apostolic approach to what we're doing as well, where we're not just thinking about spiritual care for a person or spiritual formation or disciplines as a disciple. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we're actually looking at multiplication of the apostolic. So we're wanting to see, things birthed, established, maintained, and then continued. And so
Yeah.
that's our heart as well. We don't go too hard in our first time. We're not here to be experts, but we often when I get invited another time, or we go, hey, part two, we really are starting to challenge is like, hey, how can we use our people, when I'm talking about the people that God's given you within your congregation, to reach more people or new locations, or you know and so we've noticed that there's been a lot of like a house church types of movements that are starting to
Oh,
really
that's
bring
cool.
hold. So they start off as a life group or a care group or a discipleship group, and then we challenge these. It's like, hey, there's a large enough distance from that other church. is there a leader that could really take this on and get vision for that village? And so, yeah, that's been probably the norm, has been seeing, yeah, a bit more of a rural, because also the finances aren't involved. We're not needing buildings, we're not needing LED screens, you know. And it's not that we don't need, those things can help, with some things,
Yeah.
but it's not the gospel. Those things are here to communicate a message.
Yeah.
But often some of the best gifts that we do is like, I don't know, I can't, I can't think of the top of their head how many guitars we've given away. And that has been like the
Really.
huge blessing of like giving someone an acoustic guitar that's in their village, that they can now sing worship and teach their people worship songs, and they're not even believers yet, but they just love music and they want to be involved. And so
That's
sometimes it's
cool.
just even small gestures like this. It could be $100 cheap guitar that can just go in with a they might not even be a pastor at this stage, but like a church leader, and then it kind of just starts from there.
Yeah. Are there a few pieces you make sure you mention to these pastors, or church leaders? Like, um, obviously, take care of yourself, but because it sounds to me like you really want to make sure everyone is fed before they leave.
Right.
So, are there a few points that you make sure you mention and impart to ensure that they are fed before they leave?
Right. So one thing that we love to do is to do our best to identify leaders in that group that maybe aren't connected. And so, like, uh, you know, around the world, there's different movements, or pastors have friends that they can call up and they just doing life, beside each other. But there's often times you see in leadership that it's the ones that are lonely by themselves, that are just don't have anyone to call. And so we want to leave these areas where people have friends. And so we have lots of time of food, connection. We do different icebreaker games just to build connection with one another. So there is this personal pastoral care side to the pastor that we really believe we want to do. I think for me, one of the things that I've been focusing on is challenging leaders to think beyond their gift, um, and because often in these areas of the unreached areas, the pastor is the one that is gifted, in the sense of he knows more than everyone about the Word of God. He can play guitar, he can lead a church, but what happens is they can be the bottleneck to advancement of the gospel, or future works. And so I really want to challenge biblically, what has God called us to as leaders and pastors? Because if we just go on what's been done or what's been modeled to us, it might not be necessarily 100% that was what was biblically instructed. And so I don't like to share too much when I do our trainings about what I've done or who I am. I often
Mm.
share a little bit enough context that I've got context on Southeast Asia, but I actually want to come back to the Word of God and what's like, what does God want us to do as a leader? What's our responsibility? And
Yeah.
then the rest is up to God. We're not God, like, and so I guess leaving the pastor with vision, with mission, clarity on who they are in God, and who they are as a leader. But at the same time, is like we do what we're instructed to do, and God does the rest. So it's
Yeah.
really inviting the Spirit of God, and letting the pastors know that they don't have to be God. They just have to represent Him, and God does
Yeah.
the rest.
Are there any barriers or bottlenecks that you hit as far as, um, I guess, kind of as far as the politics and the the relationships go? Because, like, for instance, in America and probably most Western countries, you end up hitting a lot of like legitimate politics. Um, Christians fighting against like identity and sexuality and all of that kind of stuff. Is there anything like that that you guys are having to deal with on a regular basis as far as? Um,
Yeah, I think. to right now, like there's still quite a conservative approach within the Christian church within Thailand, and I was for now to speak on behalf of Thailand because that's where I've been putting majority of my focus. So there has been this conservative approach, and there has been some strong discussions with some friends and leaders, Thai leaders, about how we can navigate these things, and what is it? Where does the church stand on some of these social
Yeah.
issues as well? But I probably don't think that some of those issues have been the blockages for us necessarily. I think the unity of the church has probably is 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 one thing that we're trying to not come in with a certain label or a certain brand or we obviously have theology that we believe in,
Yeah.
but we also don't want to be a hindrance to people connecting with us.
Yeah.
And so, like for me, I'm Pentecostal. I really believe in all the gifts of the Spirit flowing through our lives, and I believe the Holy Spirit is available for all people, and that empowers us to do what we're called to do. That God helps us, but at the same time, I'm working with some conservative Baptists that have a heart for God and His Word, and want to expand His kingdom. And so I don't want to put a certain label on myself, but if they
Yeah.
ask, I let them know where I come from. But at the same time, I want to be inclusive to the gospel, because
Yeah.
they're ministers in their own right. Um, but I often share and a lot of us share in our pastors' gatherings is the empowerment of the Holy Spirit. Um, and so again, this is not an Enoch idea, or it's not uh, a certain movement's idea. We want to come back to Scripture. What does
Yeah.
God speak to this about? And so, yeah, we just come back to the words of Jesus. Um, in John it says, that Jesus has to go. And Jesus says his own words that I have to go so I can send you a helper that can do
Yeah.
greater things than I'll do. He's referring to the Holy Spirit there, and so we also want to align our things with the things of the Word, not necessarily our own ideas or preferences. So even around church planning, like we don't go with a model. There's certain church planting trainings that have a certain model to plant
Yeah.
churches. We embrace, we're men. Like some areas, home churches, house churches, they're the way to go. Like they're the most effective way to reach people, particularly in strong religious areas already, Muslims and Hindus. Like, man, house church is the way to go. Don't build a building on the corner of your street. Um,
Yeah.
and then there's other areas where it's, hey, we need prominence. We need a place where we're we're putting something in the ground in this city. Like, let's
Yeah.
believe that God would bring a building that we could house the future of the works, but majority of the unreached areas that we're starting to work in, house churches, home groups, these have been the most effective way to make disciples. And I think that's the other aspect to church planning or church development is not growth of people and more numbers and there's 20 people here and there's 100 people at this church. It's actually, are we making disciples? Are we making followers of Christ? If we're not, we're just building gatherings and we have crowds, but we're
Yeah.
called to make disciples. And so we want to make sure that the ministry that we're doing, the empowerment, the connections with church planners or our mentoring, will be all about, are we making disciples? So often, pastors and church planners will talk about problems. Oh, we don't have enough money. We don't have enough
Yeah.
team. We compare ourselves to other people. They've got the team and they've got the cameras and they've got the big business guy that underwrites everything. And there's all these things. In the end, it's like, are we making disciples? Discipleship often is free with finances, but requires sacrifice of our life and and pouring into people. That's days a week. That's nights away from your family because you're running a Bible study, pouring into people. It takes dedication, consistency, and so yeah, we want to get back to that, making disciples.
Yeah. That's powerful. And I think that's where a lot of churches, I don't know, I can't speak on all churches, but from social media, it looks like a lot of churches are focused on the event and not the individual.
Hmm.
And I think it's really easy to do. Like, oh, I have an event 9 a.m. every Sunday. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where when you have the individual in mind, especially it's really easy in um, like an Eastern culture where like in Thailand where you go up to Chiang Rai and there or where yeah we were in Chiang Rai where there were just you go up to where like Pond lived and
Hmm.
there might be a cluster of 5 houses. Then you
Right.
go up a little more and there's another cluster of 5 or 6 houses,
Yeah.
you know? And it's really easy where there's like, well, obviously all of us are going to be in one space. You know what I mean? It's it's easy in that environment to be like, well, I'm not hosting an event. I'm individually speaking to every one of these people because every one of them matters.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to make that shift. And I think continually speaking into that is really cool and really powerful, focusing on the discipleship, because I think what can happen for a lot of people is you start looking at numbers, and especially like I would have to imagine that having a bunch of pastors in a room at a time, they're all going to be mentioning how large their church is. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Oh, I have 5 people. I have 50 people. I have 500
Yeah.
people, you know? And I think it'd be really easy to look at numbers and not individuals. So I think that's really cool and really powerful.
Yeah. That's great.
Um, is there anything else you'd want to add? Mention to our audience or ask for help or support on in any way?
Yeah, I think, yeah, for all the listeners, just be praying for us, be praying for Global Fellowship. We're involved in some very difficult areas to minister. Um, there isn't a freedom there. A lot of things are behind closed doors. Leaders are being persecuted. And so I think, sometimes, um, we can feel like that our problems are quite big, right? It could be finances, could be relational, um, just seasons of life just feel harder. Um, but I'll just challenge our listeners that are listening today is just take a moment throughout the day just to think of the people that are reaching the unreached. They're often, on country roads. There's no signal. There's no phones. Local leaders speaking local languages, reaching and loving, and often putting their families at danger. And so, yeah, just be praying for that. And also, if God puts on people's hearts to be involved in reaching lost people in unreached areas around Southeast Asia and even Central Asia and the Middle East, we'd love to hear from you. We're looking for partners that would love to come and journey with local leaders with trainings, empowerment, pastoral care, and also releasing of local leaders through church planning. So yeah, if that's on your heart or you'd love to find out more information, I'd love to get connected. And I'm hoping to visit the States as well next year. So we'd love to, if you have a small group or a church or time for a coffee, we'd love to just spend time together. I'd love to hear your heart, but also love to share more of our hearts for the lost
Yeah.
people in these unreached areas.